So here we are discussing about only three theories. Number one, we normally discuss about purchasing power parity. Sometimes we normally call it PPP, right? PPP. So in this case, we just need to be understanding, because yesterday we were able to look on the international financials contracts that we can be able to engage ourselves in. But today I just want us to look on the theories of the foreign exchange, because already you know we are dealing with the international transactions here. So we know that this theory states, so let me write here for you, this theory states that the exchange rate, it is stated that the exchange rate between two currencies are the same in the equilibrium. Are the same in equilibrium when the purchasing power of the currency is the same. The purchasing power of the currency is the same in each country. So we normally talk about under PPP, inflation rate under PPP, inflation rate is the key consideration. So in this case, we are saying PPP can be expressed using the formula So in this case, when you are going to be, because most probably the examiner is going to be asking how to calculate the spot rate or the forward exchange rate, we say to get our forward exchange rates, we normally take the spot rates times, we have said we are going to be comparing inflation rates. So in this case, I'm taking 1 plus inflation of country C over inflation 1 plus inflation of country B, And in this case, this, when you discuss about S, it is the current spot rates. Inflation of C, we are talking about inflation rate of the home currency. Then inflation B, unaweza tumia any numericals you want, but here you can talk about inflation rates of the foreign currency. By the way, hapa tu ni kutumia, hapa unatumia ubongo kidogo hapa. Unasema inflation of the C hapa juu. Hapa unaekanga the weaker currency here. Hapa unaekanga weaker currencies. And here we put strong currencies. Right? So for instance, I will be able to give an illustration here. Let me give an illustration where I'm discussing about the spot rates. The spot rate here, we are being given 30 Ugandan per Kenyan shillings, right? And in this case, the examiner gives you inflation of Kenya, right? Being, let's talk about 14%. But also he has given you inflation in Uganda, inflation in UG, which is 16%. And then the examiner is going to be asking you to calculate 3-month, to calculate a 3-month forward exchange rate. Forward exchange rate. Remember here, you are discussing about the spot rate that you are given is 30 Ugandan per Kenya shillings. And then you are being given, even when you look on this inflation, Cecilia, if you are in class today, can you be able to tell us the weaker currency between the Kenya and Uganda based on the inflation given there in our example? Which is our weaker currency? Which is our weaker currency there?
Uganda.
Uganda, very good. So it means the weaker currency here will be Uganda. So when you're going to be doing your calculations here, even you don't need to be cramming. You just look on the weaker currency between the two. Because right now, when I hear people like accountants, when they are discussing about the current state of economy, we are saying that our economy is basically affected by the inflation. So when I compare between the two, I look the interest rates. I look on the inflation rate, sorry, and therefore I can be able to say inflation is too high in Uganda compared to the inflation in Kenya. That is the knowledge of the purchasing power parity, right? That is the knowledge of the purchasing power parity. In this scenario, these inflation rates given, right, they are per annum, not per 3 months. That is the thing that you need to be understanding. Sometimes the examiner might be giving you without stating whether it is for 3 months or for per annum. So in this case, if you want to calculate your forward exchange rates, so I will be able to say, to get my forward exchange rate, I will take 30. Then I multiply by 1 plus, right? The weaker currency you have told me is Uganda, 0.16, 3 over 12, because we are calculating only for 3 months, right? Then you divide by 1 plus 0.14 times 3 over 12. So what is our forward exchange rate there? What is our forward exchange rates? What is our forward exchange rate? Forward exchange rates. So in this case, I just say 0.16 times 3 divided by 12. Right? I get 0.04. Then I add 1. And here you are going to be getting 1.04. What about downward here? We are talking about 0.14 times 3 divided by 12, right? Plus 1. Getting 1.035. So in this case, I just say 1.04 divided by my answer. Then I multiply by 30. And I'm getting, my answer will be 30.14 Uganda per Kenya shilling. Uganda per Kenya shilling. That is how you calculate the purchasing power parity. I just want us to go to the second one, where we are discussing about the second theory. And in this case, the second theory is all about the interests. Remember, the first one was inflation. So let us look on the second one. Let me leave my example there. The second one will be interest rates parity. Interest rate parity. And in this case, when you are discussing about IRP, we say this. I will start by giving out an example, and I say, right, we say, Victor, let us give an illustration here so that you can be able to understand it very well. We are being told Victor expects to pay how much? We are talking about 22 million. Yeah, Tanzania, right? Tanzania shillings in 4 months' time. In 4 months' time. The interest rate in Kenya. The interest rate in Kenya. In this case, right, the interest rate in Kenya, it should be, examiners given us 8% to 14%, right? And then we have the interest rate in Tanzania, which is equivalent to 12% to 20%. 12% to 20%. And then the examiner is asking us to calculate required. We are being told determine the amount payable. Determine the amount payable using the interest rate parity. The interest rate parity. Now, in this case, the first thing, because I know you are asking, mbona mwalimu anatupea example, right? Na hajatuambia kwanza what is the interest rate parity. Very simple here. And in this case, I will be able to give you the definition of the interest rate parity right now. The interest rate parity, which we like most. So what is it? Very good. So in this case, I can be able to say the interest rate parity, it uses the interest rates to measure the equilibrium, right? In this case, I can say it uses the interest rates to measure the equilibrium. Remember the first one, we were using the inflation rates. This one, you are going to be using the interest rates. The interest rates. And in this case, because it is not something that is difficult, right? Because it's not something that is difficult, let me give you an example here. Not an example, but the formula which we normally get our forward contract, right? So to get our forward, let us take your spot rate. You multiply by 1 plus the interest of country C. You divide by 1 plus the interest of country B. The interest of country B. Now, if for instance, we can be able to use the interest, because this one we are discussing about payments. He expects to pay. So these are payments. This is not an investment. And in this case, we look on the rates given. We are given the interest rate in Kenya, which is 8%, and this is 12%. This is 14%, this is 20%. The only question that you're supposed to be posing here is about the interest rate given. And unakuja tu hapa unasema, let me use my knowledge, and I say, nikiona the interest rate is kidogo, we said yesterday also, is the least interest rate is inamaanisha ndizo za investment. Ndizo za invests. These ones, they are for borrowing. Those ones are for borrowing, right? And in this case, we need to be able to know that under the interest rate parity, it is just a difference between the spot and forward rate, reflect the difference in the interest rates. And we understand that the interest rate parity theory, it normally predicts exchange rate based on the hypothesis that the difference between two countries' interest rate should offset the difference between the spot rates and the forward exchange rate of the same period. Interest rates is the key definition. That is why you see the interest rate becomes the key definition here, right? Now, in this scenario, it is important for us to calculate, right? It is important for us to be able to calculate our forward exchange rate here to determine how much this guy is going to be paid, because we have been told determine the amount payable using the interest rate parity. The spot rate of ours, right? Let me talk about the spot rate which is given in this question of ours. The examiner can give us 30 to 33 Tanzania per Kenya shillings. Let me say that the examiner was able to give you the spot rate of that caliber. In this case, you need to be asking yourself, who you Victor Kwapi? Let us assume Victor Kwapa Kenya, right? So hapa inamaanisha huku ndio home. The currency of ours iko namna hii. Iko huku, right? Now in this case we say this rate of 33 will illustrate our buy, then our 30 we sell, right? We sell. And then in this case, we just want to go back to the theories or to the formula, or not the rules, right? The rules that we normally use under the money market. And we said in this aspect, we have to be looking on the two rules, where we are looking on the role of the bank in two scenarios. Now here, you need to be telling me what is the role of bank in our first scenario here. I want to hear from Maureen. What is the role of the bank straight away right now? Because you know we are dealing with the payment. So
It's to sell.
So the payment, the role of the bank, we say, the role of the bank is to sell. The role of the bank is to sell. In this case, it's very simple, since I just want to calculate my forward exchange rates. The spot rate now, we use 30. Because we have said, because we are dealing with the payments, we are going to be selling. So I say my spot rate is 30. You multiply by 1 plus the interest rates. Between 14, right? We use the following rules, right? For foreign payments, for foreign payments, someone? Foreign payment, we said. Yesterday, I was able to give that rule. For foreign payments, borrow local. Senior, what is the role of the bank here? Foreign payment, borrow local. Someone?
The bank sells.
The bank sells. The bank sells. Now, in this scenario, it is the same. So the interest rate of C, between the interest rate that we are having here, huyu jamaa ataboro wapi, atainvest wapi? Huyu jamaa ataboro wapi, atainvest wapi?
Borrow from Kenya and invest in Tanzania.
Huyu jamaa anaboro wapi, anainvest wapi? So the interest of C itakuwa ngapi? The interest of C itakuwa ngapi? Wewe, hapa tulisema the weak, si ndio? So the interest of C itakuwa ngapi? The home currency. Because hii pesa nalipa Tanzania. Tanzania ndio? Tanzania si ndio home, ndio kunafanyiwa investment. Tanzania ndio tunafanya investment, right? Are we in agreement up to that point? Pesa inalipwa Tanzania. Tanzania ndio tunafanya investment, si ndio? Hello?
Yes.
Niangalia another person here. Wako, sisi tuna invest wapi? Mimi naona hii pesa tuna invest Tanzania. Right? Eric, is it okay? The
Yes,
interest
we are
rate of
going
Tanzania, so for investment is 0.12 times 4 over 12, right? We divide by, because we are saying borrow local, we are borrowing at which rates? 14, tuna borrow Kenya, 0.14 times 4 over 12. Na hapa tulisema tunaweka the home currency. The weak, tunaweka the weak. Tanzania kuna siku itaikuwa stronger than Kenya, unless sasa tuache kufanya kazi. But we know very well in Tanzania, we are going to invest. In Kenya, we borrow. In Kenya, we borrow. In Kenya, we borrow. So how much is this? How much is this? How much is this? So in this case, the first one will be 1.04, if I'm not wrong. Let me take my calculator there. 0.12 right, times 4 divided by 12 plus 1. Here we get 1.04. Na hapa chini we are getting 0.14 times 4. We divide by 12 plus 1. Right? We are getting 1.05. So 1.04 divided by 1.05 times 30. I'm getting 29.71. I think that is my answer there. 29.71. So in this case, to be able to conclude on our question, to be able to conclude on my question here, it means it is 29.71. Is it Tanzania per Kenya shillings? Tanzania per Kenya shillings. So it means it is 29.71 Tanzania, which is equivalent to 1 Kenya shillings. What about 22 million Tanzania shillings? Right? So it means I'm going to be taking 22 million. You divide by 29.71. Tunaenda kuboro pesa ngapi? Pesa ngapi hapo tutaenda kuboro? Because we are being told to determine the amount payable using the interest rate parity. So ile pesa tunaenda kuboro in Kenya shillings ni ngapi? I just said 22 million. You divide by 29.71. Getting Kenya shillings here, 740,491. 740,491. So inamaanisha if you are an investor like Eric, chukua pesa yako yote kwa bank account, kimbia Uganda, Tanzania utafungua utafungua bank ama sacco. You see? You see how strong is our currency? Very good, very good. Let us do number 3. Number 3 before we go to past papers. Number 3, we discuss about international Fisher's effects. Before tuende pale kwa past papers, let us finish this. We are discussing about, right? We are discussing about number 3 here, where it is normally called international. It's normally called international Fisher's effect. Right? International Fisher's effect. And here we are saying, according to IFE, right? According to IFE, interest rate difference between countries, interest rates between countries provides an unbiased predictor, of future exchange. The future exchange in spot exchange rates. In spot exchange rates. In this case, we are saying the currencies of countries with relatively high interest rates, is expected to depreciate. Against currencies with lower interest rates. Now we are saying very well the international Fisher's effect, right, can be expressed as right, to get F, we normally take the spot rates, we multiply by 1 plus the interest of the home currency over 1 plus the interest of the foreign currency. The interest of the foreign currency. Now, in this case, because this is what Mimi sitafanya illustration here, I will be able to do it from the past papers. I just want to look on the causes of interest rate fluctuation. What normally causes the interest rate fluctuation? And in this case, also the inflations. Number one, right? I can also talk about that inflation I'm quoting because the interest normally fluctuates due to high rate or the low rate of inflations. Sorry. Fluctuations. Number one, I was able to quote about inflation because inflation normally causes, like when you look at it now, when, for instance, someone is going to the bank to ask for a loan, the interest rates are going to be affected by the inflation rates. Now, I will also be able to give you another example. When you go to open, for instance, education insurance cover, and you want to invest for that thing for almost, let's talk about 10 years. The person is going to be attending to your case. Is going to be asking you one question, right? Do you want to include inflation rates in your contribution for the next 10 years or not? And he's going to be demonstrating to you how the inflation is going to be affecting your savings, right? And also the amount in which you are going to be redeeming at the end of the maturity period. So those are the things in which we have to be looking here. Number two, you have to be checking on demand. We talk on demand and supply. We talk about demand and supply of the investment funds. Investment funds. Number three, you can look on the government policies. Government policies. Number four, you can talk about political instability, like what has been happening in Kenya since 2018, political instability. Then number five, we talk about goodwill. We talk about goodwill of the company. Goodwill of the company. Those are the things in which you can be able to write in an exam and explain with your own words and get equivalent to 10 marks and get equivalent to 10 marks. I just want to look on how the questions are normally tested under this area so that we can be able to move very quickly. I just want to look on how the questions are being tested here so that once I show you how they are tested, then we can be able to look on options and then we close the topic for tonight. Now, I just want to start by looking on a question which was tested. There is a question which they have already tested there for May 2021. There is a case there. There is a question. May 2021, question 1C. May 2021, question 1C. Who is going to be reading for us? Mimi najua Maureen atatuombea leo usiku. Maureen ndiye anatuombea as we conclude tonight. 2021. May 2021 question. Usikatae kuconcentrate. Hatutaki ukram maombi. Right? Sagi uanze kukram maombi. So don't tense. So we are talking about May 2021 question 1C. And I can read this question very quickly. Dafina Limited is an import farm based in Kenya. So on 1st August 2020, the company exported tea to the United States of America on a 3-month credit amounted to $10 million. But additional information we are being told, the rate in the Forex and money market were as follows. In August, we are being given 105 Kenya shillings per US dollar. In December is 101. The Kenya interest rate is 18%. USA, you can see, is 12%. The weaker currency is Kenya, and therefore, you know what I'm talking about. So we have been told the customer will be able to settle the amount on 1st December 2020. And then number one, we have been told using the interest rate parity, determine the expected 3-month forward exchange rate is at 1st December 2020. And in this case, remember, we are discussing about the interest rate parity, where we are saying that the interest is the one that is going to be determining how you are going to be doing your illustration. In this case, to determine the forward exchange rate, you can just talk about the spot times 1 plus the rate of the home. You can write like this, the rate of the home plus 1 plus the rate of foreign, right? Nobody is going to be penalizing you. Whether you write the whole name or you write in that form like mine, nobody is going to be finalizing you. I don't know whether you are able to see my board. Good. So that is what I'm discussing about. You can see the interest rates, so now you can be able to write them. Nobody is going to be penalizing you for that. Now, in this case, once you move on, just determine your spot rate. Are you using, right? Are we using the spot rate for today? Now, we say the forward exchange rate we use now, because we are going to be changing now. So your spot rate in this case, right, will be 105 Kenya shillings per US dollar. Now, in this case, to get the forward exchange rate, we are going to be taking 105 times 1 plus the rate of the home currency. In this case, we are discussing about the weaker currency. And we are talking about Kenya, 0.18 times. We are discussing the period. The forward exchange rate, we are discussing only 3 months, 3/12. You divide by 1 plus, right? The foreign currency, which is a stronger currency, is 0.12 times 3/12. How much is this? How much is this? How much is this? How much is this? So, naanza na multiplication there. 0.18 times 3 divided by 12. I'm getting 0. Right? Here you are getting 1, not 1.045. Right? Then the downside here, 0.12 times 3 divided by 12 plus 1. You get 1.03. So 1.045, you divide by answer, then you multiply by 105. So the forward exchange rate of ours will be 106.53 Kenya shillings per US dollar. Per US dollar. Now, the other question we can be able to check on straight away, you can look on question which they tested on November 2018, question 5B. 2018, question 5B. 20 November. November 2018, question 5B. Let us go there and we look on how that question is tested. 2018 here. So 2018 November question 5B. Five B, good. So here we are being told a large manufacturing firm based in Kenya is tendering for an order in South Africa. The tender conditions state that payment will be made in South African rands in 24 months' time, which that is 2 years from now. So the company is unsure of what price to tender. And we are being told here, the company's marginal cost of production at the time of tendering is estimated to be Kenya shillings 2 million, and a markup of 20% is applicable for the company. Exchange rate will be given Kenya per South African rands. Spot rate is given there. Additional information, no forward rate exists for 24 months' time. But we are being given information too that the market inflation between Kenya and South Africa, Kenya there, annual inflation rates and annual interest rate available for manufacturing firm. We are being given the borrowing rates and investment rate. 7 marks required. Using the purchasing power parity model, recommend the tender price to be used. The tender price to be used. So in this case, you know, the purchasing power parity, we normally use inflation. We are going to be using inflation here. Very simple. You don't need to cram. So the purchasing power parity, we use inflation. We use inflation. So how am I going to be doing this? I write my formula here. To get the forward exchange rate, we take the spot, 1 plus the inflation of the home, 1 plus the inflation of foreign. Weaker, strong currencies in simple terms. Now, in this case, when I look on the question given here, how is our question given? The question is given, the spot rate given, to determine the one to use. Let us first determine the spot rate to use. So it is given as 8.025 to 8.125. We are talking about Kenya shillings per South Africa rands. Right? It is given like that. Now, from this aspect, you have to be determining where is to borrow, where is to sell. So I'm supposed to be going to my question, and I determine a large manufacturing firm based in Kenya is tendering for an order. This is a receipt. So in this case, I have to be determining kama Kenya shillings yangu iko hapa, this is to buy and this is to sell, right? We are talking the role of the bank. The role of the bank, because we are talking about a receipt. A receipt, we say bank always does what? Bank inauza, senior. Bank always sell. And in this case, I say, to get my forward exchange rate, I will be using the 8.125, because we are going to be selling now as my spot rate, times 1 plus the rates, the inflation rate given in the question for the home currency in Ngapi. Right? Inflation rate given there. So the first one we are being given how much? For receipts. Right? How much?
Excuse me, Mwalim.
Sorry?
Excuse me. See, I think for receipts, bank always buys.
What about for payments?
It sells.
So what are we doing here? Is it a payment we are doing? Is it a receipt or payment? Let me read the question again. A large manufacturing firm based in Kenya is tendering for an order. Good. We are making a payment. Sorry for that. Very good. It is a payment. And it means the bank will always sell. Thank you for that correction. So in this case, remember, the inflation rate in Kenya, we are being given at 8%. And the question is saying, the tender conditions state that the payment will be made in South African rands in 24. You multiply this by 2, becoming 16%. Right? So in this case, I talk about 0.16. You divide by 1 plus. The interest rate in South Africa, the inflation rate in South Africa is 6%. When you to multiply by 2 years, you get 12%. And this will be 0.12. 0.12, because we are carrying our analysis for 2 years, 24 months. That is why you see I'm multiplying by 2. So in this case, I just say 1.16. You divide by 1.12, right? We are getting 1.035. Then you multiply by 8.125. We are getting 8.4152. 8.4152. 8.4152. And in this case, once we get that answer, what are we going to be doing? What should we do now? Right? That is our spot rate now. That is our spot rate. 8.4152. Now, let us look on the tendering price. Tendering. What is our tendering price? What is our tendering price in this scenario? So the cost of production given in the question, the cost of production umepewa ngapi hapa Eric? 2 million. So hapo una add, tunaambiwa markup, add markup to determine the selling price. The markup is 20% of the cost of production, right? Getting 400,000. Getting 400,000. So the tendering price should be how much? 2.4 million. 2.4 million. 2.4 million. That is the tendering price. That is the tendering price. Tendering price. That is our tendering price. And these figures are in Kenya shillings, by the way. Are in Kenya shillings. Are in Kenya shillings. Are in Kenya shillings. What about the forward exchange rate of ours? Are we going to be writing it? So in this case, it is very simple because we are told about it is in Kenya shillings per South African rands. Right? For South African rands. So it means if you take 8.4152, right, Kenya shillings, we get 1 ZAR. You ask yourself, what about 2.4 million Kenya shillings? Hapa zitakuwa ngapi? Hapo zitakuwa ngapi? And in this case, if you cross multiply here, it means you take 2.4 million, you divide by 8.4152. How much are we getting here? In South African rands. So 2,400,000, you divide by my answer, and you are getting 285. We are getting 285, 199 ZAR. That is what the examiner was asking. 285, 199 ZAR. Any question? By doing that, you have 7 marks, imagine. That is how you do Hello, guys, a minute, just 1 minute, please. Hello. Now, Tim, I just want to give two assignments, yeah? Right? I think there is a student who was able to do a very good question for May 2017. And I don't know how you were able to maneuver, whether you were able to get the exchange rates, the forward exchange rate, so that you can be able to determine the money market and so on. But now, because you have already known now to first get, because it is all about the international, it is also about the interest rate parity, you need just to be able to calculate the forward exchange rate first. Then number two, you do the money market, and then you tell us the expected currency to invest in the local. So it means that the question is all about the foreign receipts, where we are talking about we borrow foreign. So in that case, you are going to be able to do your question as how I was able to show you, and then you give your conclusions there. You give your conclusions there. In case of that question bringing a lot of differences, I can be able to share the solutions for you. So in this case, I'm just going to be giving two questions. May 2017, question 4B, right? And then we are talking about November 2020. November 2020, we also have question number, November 2020, question 2C. November 2020, question 2C. Question 2C. Any question? Any question at that point? Hello? Hello, guys?
No question from my side.
Now, if we don't have any question, because I have found that there is something that I have to do for myself. I have some issues with my postgraduates. I can see I have some assignments which I have to be submitting in an hour's time. So I request whether we can stop at that point, but the next time we just do options. Then the only thing that is remaining is options. The options, we have two things. We do Black-Scholes model. And then we do number two, where we talk about, we're going to be discussing about Baumol. So those are the only two models which are remaining, and they can't stop us from passing exams, by the way. But that being said and done, it does not mean Mwalimu will not do them. So the two options, I just be able to work for them, and then I will be able to wish you the best. So that is not the case. So I request we stop at that point. Then we will be able to do the options, and we conclude our syllabus from that end. That should be done over the weekend, most probably, because we have to be doing the Black-Scholes model, which is mostly tested. So I think I'll do only 3 questions, and then we conclude. I thank you, because today actually sikuwa nimeplan kuwafunza, but I said, let me try. And I have done something. So you can continue revising it. I share, you do it. Then the options will be done later. So if we don't have any question, I can stop at that point. I wish you all the best. continue doing your revision, and all shall be well. All shall be well. In case of any question, I think wale watu niuliza maswali, I normally respond. So let us continue doing our level best. Thank you and good night.